third quarterback taken. The Jets have all this draft capital. They could actually get even more flipping Sam Darnold, get even more trading down, still wind up with a quarterback who they may feel is going to be better in the long run than Sam Darnold, and reset the rookie contract, right? So they get more years of control before they have to pay him. I just think Darnold is likely to be available. I think the Colts could be a fit.
Well, my hesitation about Sam Darnold is strictly because of contamination factor. He was working under Adam Gase. And we all know how atrocious he was as a coach. He never should have been a head coach for the New York Jets to begin with. He showed up to the press conference, as far as I'm concerned, my personal opinion, he showed up as an introductory press conference. Ha! Okay, looking zooted out his damn mind, all right? And as far as I'm concerned, coached like it for the vast majority of his time in Gotham City, even though they were playing football games at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So I definitely think that you don't touch Sam Darnold for the immediate moment, because we got to make sure that he's not contaminated and he won't infect anybody, okay? Because that's how bad it was playing for Adam Gase. Having said all of that, I happen to believe that Jacoby Brissett can play. I don't think he's a scrub. Now, last time we saw him was in 2019, even though he threw like 8 passes or whatever last season. We know it was Phillip Rivers' team. He gave him $25 million for 1 year. But the bottom line is this. Jacoby Brissett the year before, although it was a 7-8 record in the 15 games he played, threw for nearly 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions. Obviously can run with the football as well. He's got some motor. He's not a stationary target. And I don't think that Sam Darnold can be viewed as a significant upgrade to Jacoby Brissett at this particular moment in time. So because of that, it would not shock me at all if Indy ended up keeping Jacoby Brissett, giving him an opportunity now that he's been there in Indy with Frank Reich. Frank Reich knows the system, etc. He might have some confidence in him. I say give the brother a chance. Let Sam Darnold go somewhere else, but not there.
I'm going to introduce another guy. I'm going to say Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz at Indy's price tag, not what the Eagles are trying to get, because the Eagles want everybody to believe that this is Carson Wentz from 2017. We know better. We have seen differently. But I felt like Carson Wentz was his best with Frank Reich. He flourished with Frank as his OC in Philly. Now, the numbers need to match up. The fact that the Bears, another team that has connections to Carson Wentz, and some of his former coaches are there, and the Colts, these two teams have not made a deal yet, signals to me that the price has got to come down. I think Carson Wentz, I would rather have Carson Wentz than Sam Darnold. Stephen A. mentioned the contamination factor with Sam Darnold. The Colts are a team that had Phillip Rivers. Like, this was a team that was a QB away from being in the AFC title game. You felt like, if they just get a really good quarterback, this team is money. They're going to go. They get Phillip Rivers. And it's still not quite right. It still doesn't work. So if I'm Indy, I'm going to say, you know what would work? Sam Darnold? No. So, and Jacoby Brissett has been there. I think the kid can play. Stephen, you think the kid can play?
Well, let me say this real quick before you go.
Go ahead.
You think Stephen A., you think Jacoby can play? I don't doubt that. The question is, what does the team think? Because the team brought in Phillip Rivers. You know what I mean?
Well, they brought in Phillip Rivers. They didn't bring in Carson Wentz. Not the Carson Wentz with the season he just had. That's number one. Number two, I don't necessarily disagree with you about Carson Wentz, because I get your point. Because I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, because he used to play with Frank under Frank Reich. He went down in his MVP caliber season, and Nick Foles took over and they won the Super Bowl. I get all of that. But here's the flip side to it. Doesn't Jalen Hurts remind you a little bit of Jacoby Brissett? He does to me. I mean, he can throw, but he ain't the most accurate thrower in the world. He's certainly a good athlete. He's got some wheels on him, etc. And he took Carson Wentz's starting job really by default, because Carson Wentz was just god-awful. I'm just saying, when you look at it from that perspective, it's entirely plausible that, you know what, you might elect to go with Jacoby Brissett because he's going to keep the mistakes to a minimum. He may not be a game breaker or a game changer, but a better option than Carson Wentz? Maybe.
I think Kimberly's logic is sound. I think, Kimberly, your logic is very sound here. They're not. I mean, I thought it was ridiculous that they're asking for a first-round pick. To me, to me, you should have to include draft capital to get out of that Carson Wentz deal. He was the worst quarterback in football this year, including Sam Darnold. And I'd rather have Sam Darnold in the locker room, right? So
I agree with that.
And this is the only reason I didn't say the Colts for Wentz, because I think your logic is very sound, including why it wouldn't be Brissett. The reason I would say that is because DiFilippo is in Chicago. And so that's, as you mentioned, part of the kind of coaching tree that was there when Carson Wentz was having success in Philadelphia. And when I look at Chicago, especially with that offensive line, I'm thinking they're going to want a quarterback who can move around a little, who has some big play possibility in him. They're not going to want the price tag to be very high. So I see him as maybe more likely to wind up in Chicago than in Indianapolis.
It's Sam Darnold, though?
All right. Some definite possibilities here, guys. We'll see what happens in Max. You just mentioned Sam Darnold possibly going to the Colts, which means now the Jets have a quarterback situation of their own. So that's our last team we're going to be investigating today on That's My Quarterback. Sam Darnold's future with Gang Green is really anything but certain. New York has been mentioned in the Deshaun Watson race and may have the best assets to acquire him. So, Stephen A., the Jets' Week 1 starter will be...
Right now, the way I'm looking at it is Sam Darnold. But let me say this for the record. If I'm the New York Jets and I have any opportunity whatsoever to get my hands on Deshaun Watson, I would give up 3 first-round picks. I would give up Sam Darnold. I would throw in a masseuse, a massage therapist, car service into perpetuity.
Firstborn.
I'd slide his mama a new house. You know what I'm saying? Or I'd make sure to give her access to the private jet so she can fly in on Sundays for games. Whatever the hell he wants, and I'd give it to him. Figure it out. If you're the New York Jets, you go all the way in, because Deshaun Watson is a game changer. He's a showstopper. On top of it all, he's a model citizen who would be great for the New York market. And folks in Gotham City would rally around that brother in a heartbeat, and you wouldn't have to worry about the quarterback position for years to come. Got to buffer your offensive line. Make sure you protect this brother. Can't put him on suicide watch. But outside of that, you could build around this dude. You do whatever it takes. I just don't see them being able to do it. And as a result, I think they're going to be stuck with Sam Darnold. No. And that's where I'm at with it.
You know, I hear what you're saying, Stephen A. I actually think Miami is best positioned to get Deshaun Watson. Like, if they really want him, if I was Houston, I would think...
management.
Because if Tua was in this draft, I would want him over everyone but Trevor Lawrence. So they have Tua there. If the Texans value Tua, they can give them Tua, start with Tua and the number 3 pick in the draft. And if I'm Deshaun Watson, I want Miami, because usually if a team is drafting that high up, they stink. But Miami got the number 3 pick through a trade. So they're actually quite good and poised to be even better. I just think that the Dolphins, if they want Deshaun, are best situated to get him. So where does that leave the Jets? I understand why people would still have hope for Sam Darnold. I would move on were I the Jets. It wouldn't be an easy choice, but I would do it. And I think there's a guy in this draft whose stock has fallen because of a couple of games during a weird kind of college football season. But at one point, it really wasn't clear that it's Trevor Lawrence 1 and then everyone else 10, 11, and 12.
Fields.
It was 1 and 1A. That was Justin Fields. And if I'm the Jets and I'm looking at this team, I'm not thinking we're about ready to win. I'm thinking we need a total rebuild. If I can move Sam Darnold and get some draft capital back, even if I don't get Deshaun Watson, if I can trade down from the number 2 spot and get stuff back, including all the other draft capital I have, I can walk away with Justin Fields and 1 million draft picks on top of the 1 million draft picks I have. That's a rebuild. I think Fields has a chance to be the second most special quarterback in this draft. And there was a time not long ago where we were wondering out loud, could he be the most special? That's who I'd target if I were the Jets.
All I'm going to say is,